Test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Test, test, test. 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2, 1, 2. Test.
C'est bon là? Je sais pas si Vivette m'entend, Sandrine, non, je m'entends pas. Il est 4 heures, on commence? Personne m'entend.
Oui, on peut commencer.
On peut commencer? D'accord.
Recording in progress.
C'est pas méditer. C'est des... Non. Allez.
차차 말이지. 근데 가와라죠. 됐어. 됐어. 지금 나 드린 괜찮지.
C'est pour ça. Viet, on voit pas Rinpoche, c'est normal. Est-ce que dans la salle, on voit Rinpoche? Parce que ici, il ne paraît pas.
dit quand pas sur mato. Qui est coquetoué? Comment tu suis? Rétéré, chérie.
Viet est toujours.
Oui. Coquetoué. Coquetoué. Ah, carchouri. 이린데 지금은 정말 생계 쇼르바 생계 정말 저희들이 쇼유스.
First of all, I would like to say Tashitale to all those who are listening today, which means greetings.
재빈산다 드린 안존데 냠도 좀네 디니 가르쇼레 계속 개체모 망부지 쉬어야 중원티 가보시라 중.
I'm very happy to have this opportunity to be able to speak to you about matters that are I consider very important.
좋아.
조금만
세상
틱도 게임라데도
세상 다 드린 쉬야지 디마다치
디도
가르쇼레 미스 던던데 바사데 지단 컨디스레 세럽시 예다 미스 던던데 비키고 존나 컨디스 오레사지 던디시 메소도.
So the topic of today's talk is how to make your life meaningful. If you want to give meaning to your life, how are you to go about it?
제산디 베카르슈레 마레투 삼단투 미스 던던데 바치단틀라 림버트부시 체베이나 삼단 대어요레 생도.
I think it would be to facilitate the discussion about this and the approach of it. We can approach it from two different angles.
제비인사 더 중나 디니베 미스 던던데 바시투 가르슈레 랑기 미스틸레야 지기 셈 대보 다 루트 셈이자 대보 인조 셈 대보에 하시다 델르테니 rāng chīgū tsa māyīmbā, rāng kī pāma pīngyā, chōgpō, pōku pōchū, tīni lē rō, tīni lōngbā chīgbē mī, tēsam tō mā sē, zamlīngi mī mā tsāngmā lā pā, zamlīngi mī mā tā, tīni mī māyīmbē, samshē, mā tsū tōng tōpa māngbō chī wārī, chabīn zāng tēsū tsāngmā lā pā chī, rōpa chī yā rāb chī, 콘솔 배 샵시 쉬야다 편도 주야지 이나 어디 가르슈리 미스턴데 데프스 랍추리
I think we could say that if we could manage to render our life a happy one, in the sense of being happy in our minds and happy and well physically, and being happy. So in other words, make it so that we are happy ourselves, but not just ourselves. That, for example, our parents, our children, our friends, our family members, our colleagues at work, our compatriots. In fact, if we could manage to do something that would be helpful and kind and useful, especially for all beings in the world. And when we say beings, that means not just human beings, but also, for example, animals as well. If we can find a way to use our lives so that we serve all beings, all these beings, and to accomplish something helpful for them, well, that would be by far the best way to make our lives meaningful.
다 텐지 마중 이니 다 텐지 뒷당부 들어봐 당부들이 결대 텐지 마중 이니 라니 지기 가르슈 우리 샘 대부지다 더 루심 대부니자 고르데 이는 조샘 대부지다 이니 가르슈 우리 샘는 논주시라 샘는 논주시라 마싱부젠 삼동단 만노 약부지 제 투부식당 드니 셴르베 뇌베 릭데 강베 젬 투투지 제 투이나 드니 젠 미스케베이나 미디 드니 소소 셈 기부 요레 소소 야고 요레 미신달 시다 페마 토비니 소소 기부제 밀 뇌베 기기요 마레 제비인자 디 디야 드니 가르슈 우리 미스케다 약부지 레스야네 두스 랍투리 상두스.
So that would be the ideal. If we cannot manage that, if that is too difficult a task, then the next best would be to seek personal happiness. And when we talk about happiness, that means, of course, physical well-being as well as well-being in our mind, and that the latter being, of course, the most important. And to contribute to that, if we can manage to adjust our way of thinking so that it is as valid, as correct, as realistic as possible, and at the same time to do everything we can to refrain from harming any living beings, anyone. Well, then, even if we cannot manage to really constructively help a lot of other beings, at least we will have avoided harming them, and that is also a way to make our lives meaningful. Ja, maar dit koude.
Ja. 제빈자 진짜 다 된지 용을 제발라. 다 된지 용고고요 알바. 자산 된지 용을 제발라. 가르쳐 버렸지도 질 말한초. 베네 프랑스리 유베미 유럽. 다 링진 노조 링진 나 유베미 아메리카로 소와. 정말 치tunji 시다베 할레베 좀 쳐보시지. 이간에 개버도야 프랑스 롱고들라 tunji 푸숨 쳐보. 이니베 가르슈르 먼저 저의 내단 차샤비네 맨줄 소고티수 롱보 현달 매베 할레베 문인 점불링 날베 제무르지 레다 랍초기 유스레 에키란조이 킹그레 마레 삼타네 제무레스 랍초도 롱보 현달 베나 신다 아메리카 랍지 차샤비네 덴데라 요마레 라 요마레 제빈장가조 시다베 초직 시다베 가르쇼리 덴데지 유럽 롱베 카셰 요르티 데난다 프랑스나 유 게토브 세니멘도 게브 세니멘도 이 초직네 수능 침부 시부지 레삼도네.
So look at our situation now. If we take the example of France or other European countries or other Western countries such as the United States and so forth, well, this part of the world we enjoy excellent material conditions, what we call external conditions. This is something quite exceptional, and just taking the example of the medical system here in France, it is a system which is very high standard and with medical care provided for all without exception, and this is something really quite rare, and it is something that not only the fact of everyone having available medical treatment, but also the quality of the medical treatment is excellent. And this is not the case of all countries in the West, although it may be of many, certain number, but just take, for example, the case of the United States. There is, of course, excellent medical care available, but it's not necessarily available to all. And so it's something we need in France here to think about, to realize how great our fortune is, and to see that this is what we would say is a sign of our very great merit to have all these favorable conditions available to us.
다투 스리데이니 단데 룽바 신달 땡이 미주 대비나 프랑스를 주 대비나 만줄 강이 시부지 멘도 삼산럽시 프랑스 미술 강이 시부지 멘도 삼 가두이니 이 잡잡아 이니 가두이니 리기멘도 라블라바 대땡이지 근데 통기 열이 땡이 미주 군수 삼 프랑스 미술관에 전부 시우지 요스리 그래서 가두이니 리기민도 시다 랍기도스 야구 유네 리기민도 쓰기도 배나 지금 최대 제고를 세비니 리기민도 쓰기도 라와민도 쓰기도 이圈다圈에 매대be 소르지 미술 든지 통기열 일땡이 미술 제빈자 배는가 자외 프랑스 미말에 진이용의 미지레디 프랑스날 로망부 대비인자 규여봐 프랑스랑 내다 컨트리 유메디 내단 점불링 날에 약슈임부데 네 신기요리 디 랍토그링이 레디 미주 다나라 통주라 프랑스 미디 가투이닌 리기민도 신지레샤 자산 콘솔강이 시부지 요리 삼 근데 삼고 약소르지 요리.
But that may be the case, but then there are people who look at France from the outside and from abroad, and they tend to imagine that in France has many, many problems. Why is that? Because, well, there's always demonstrations going on, and continually people who are complaining about this and that, and they conclude, therefore, that the French people really have not such very good conditions. Why is that? Because, like I say, the French never seem to be satisfied with what they have. They're always complaining about this and that. And so just, for For example, when it is said that we all have to look after our health, and there are many people who say, well, no, I don't agree with this, and I don't agree with that, and they revolt against the indications given by the government and so forth. And so this is something that can be seen from the outside as an indication that things are not, all is not well in France. But and although I'm not actually a French of origin, I've been living though in France for so many years that I can appreciate well the situation here, and I can really affirm that the situation is really excellent. The conditions, living conditions and standard of living and so forth are really very, very good, if not the best of all. And yet, because of all this situation where people are complaining and so forth from the outside, the French people can give a very different impression to others.
근데 생긴 데는 양 두수대 든지지래 두수대 시다 매비 인자 슈모고제 제비 인자 근데 임비 인자 다데 용야드 가를 때는 용고요래 슬라비 있나 배는 것이 덴바리 만지기 든지 요래 슝기 차는 난다 만지바 이 마임베야 다 지기 가르슈리 초보든지 차네 제가 만지기 든지 땐데 요래 대소는 지기 민도스나 지브레 이 랍초거 라와 요래 말한 좀 로미 탑다 집에 중세 롱버진 여비 인자 띠지기 요래 요래디 이니 것이 드리바 망부치라 네 양 지기 민도스 에페나 즉 최대한 제압지니 그래서 최대한 제고를 상면 제고를 슬라비나 딘지기 민도스 만솔 라와 민도스도 라와 민도스 세야티 카바투 된도고스 칼레 삼탄 따두 라와 민도스도 코란주 셈나 가레 진도 여디 제고고요래 이 가르스 빼나다 냠도 치 건다 장스 타부셰 땅 냠도 루루제 미망고 초 개개 든지 지도민도 색도와 세상 안줄 라와민 따디 문이세네 교신 템버스 사원 있는 말을 상고도 응아를 삼다나
Well, now, what can we say more about this situation? We have to admit that there are, of course, some complaints that are perfectly legitimate. It can be that at times the government's actions are not adequate or are even mistaken. And when this is objectively the case, of course, everyone has the right to say so. We enjoy human rights, great human freedom in this country, and therefore people are allowed to express their opinions freely. But then there are other cases where the complaints are not so legitimate, and people complain about lacking of freedom. What does that mean? It means they don't have the freedom to do it exactly as they want to do, and this is the objection that people raise. And when people are told that they have to look after their health and take certain precautions and so forth, and well, then people revolt against this and say, what are they revolting against? With saying the lack of freedom to go out and gather in large groups and go dancing and singing together and spending a lot of time together. When that kind of opportunity is limited by instructions given by the government, then they say, oh, we lack freedom, why this is no right, this is no good, etc., etc. Listen to me.
Maybe insa, Jir, and Gonda, Chiki Chilchi, Ruru, Mimang Yamdo, Ruru, Che, Shatu Jab, and this Jevati, Chech, Jene Yagu Mindus, Shaggy Yomare, Chun Shaggy Yomare, the Jen Rigi Ore. Rigi Ore, the teacher to Mimang Bushivut and Zongurva. Bushivut Zomdu, Namju in a Mimang Zombal Yomare, Kaka Yomare. Tande Nekapso, Mimang Zomna Nasati, Captain Royati, Cherun Royagi Yanka, Yovati Musum Riva. Musum Yin Shindu, the Mansul Rawa Mindu Situ, Samtan Sati Rawa Mindu Seati, Tundus Mando Mindu, Katu Sem Trambatisa Mando, Dichen and the Younger in Dichen and the Younger Sea, some Chun and Mabes Sorobsik, get in the Tundu.
Generally speaking, there's nothing wrong with going out at night and having a good time, going dancing, singing, etc., gathering in large groups. And I'm not saying that there's not anything wrong with that, but it's usually this is fine, you know. But in the present circumstances, it's different. Because these kinds of activities actually contribute to making the present situation in the public health more decline. So making the disease spread and so forth. So and people who don't agree with this view and persist in wanting to enjoy their usual freedom, well, their view is very short-sighted. They're not thinking really about the consequences of their actions, and only looking at the very, very short term of seeking, you know, having a good time and so forth. That's not a very broad or long-term vision that they have.
General Dogul, Sungjav, sick in the Yore Kashik, can't out in the Yore. He got to Narisem, that in the end country in some salus. General in the Suya Karina some you. Corky Yeti, Danton Ditondu, Nesam, who General Suya at Pest. Matempera Mindu, Telek Tembe, charging do some sort of sick. Coryu do.
You know, in the past, General de Gaulle, he said various things, and sometimes when I heard some of the things he said, I really wondered about what he was saying. Is that really the case? You know, but now, when I think back of what he said many, many years ago, I begin to see the truth in what he said at the time.
This Amudu. Tutti Carissituta, those Naretaxi Urba, Chetu Paransi Mitsula, Samutoya Maba Mare, Yundi Chamburi, Muni, Ranso, Samu Yundi Chambushitare, Lobson Yapushita Tashabe, Lobson Yahu Lumbuziraba, Sambuling and Lobson Yagate Lumbari. Riti, Lobson Yoriti, Samutongi or Mare. Tagasem tempat katu labshari. Mato samu kyone matanga je tagas kanju manju sem katu tempati labshari reshati.
So the French, or generally speaking, the level of education in France is very good. Most people are very well educated and have a good capacity to learn and so forth. But that doesn't mean they necessarily always think before they speak, and at times that, you know, they can be very, very reactive in the sense of, you know, blurting out what first comes to their mind without thinking about the consequences of their thoughts and the implications of their points of view and so forth, which is a sign, again, of a bit short-sightedness.
재산 재산다 근데 세빈사 다긴 쉬분나시 기란줄 나라 상문 내 유비미 상문 시튠진 표숨서와 한 레버스 문에 시튠진 저직 토니 나란조 zambuling na tsemtere da yini kare men du stetu kare shuri se deyor slavina maranchu semki jodan de yakuchi hama kochen di maranchu che deyor fransi shiri na che deyor yo maradi semki jodan nang sem gindoda yabuch sem karri sem kanre yori siri kanre yori sem rik negen kare yori pengen kare yori parma kare yori tendi lobjundi the thingsa kyoni yo marwa tawani france program siltevina university kare yini labre program siltevina tendi siksi meba yo marwa di tak ngaranso karshuri 수 란제티 지 동바 대비티 파지 카삽투베이나 마란주 미지 나라 기부여야라 이다 헬레비어레 펜토버리 되게
So, like I said, in France here, we all enjoy very favorable living conditions. The standard of living and generally the conditions and so forth are really among the tops when compared to many other places in the world. So at that certain level, there's nothing to be said about that. But I do feel, though, that there is something missing. And that is a lack of understanding of how we function as human beings, how our mind functions, notably. In other words, there's a lack of education regarding how the mind functions, but also the kinds of thoughts and the different types of thoughts, ways of thinking, that categories of states of mental states, for example. Which ones are constructive, which are destructive, which are in neither of the above, are indifferent. This is something that I feel is lacking in this country, this of training in this kind of, in this field, whether it's in the schools or in universities. If you look at their programs, study programs, it's not something that you find in the curriculum of the schools and universities here, if I feel that if this gap could be filled, in other words, if this training or this education aspect of your training could be filled, then it would contribute greatly to making your life much more comfortable, much happier.
semdan temba changma mi yinere tunru yinere semda ro shinda ta kiranzul ki tandati nesu logare ba nesu logare ro shinda ti nangba yin ro ri chu sungyor ta ti kesi she mo che mi tan tunru changme shinga yor ba jaza nganzu changma sem yori sem kin ro ta chikbari sem kin ro ta chikbari ri ti yini 안주 남중기 삼로 통단디 가르시도 망쳐워지 소수 네번능 신기 삼단에 소수 네번능 신 중나야고 이 마주는 도사 소수 네번능 신세는 댐바 이 마제는 미템베 서로 이 삼로 망보지 삼로 라멘라 망보 펜도 메베 삼로 텐데 망보 시부지 아주 생각나라 요리.
So all sentient beings, when we use that expression for you, that means all humans and all animals. In Buddhism, we talk about, in fact, 6 categories of life, but the others are not visible, so not necessarily relevant now in this talk. But all creatures that have a mind, they have a mind that functions more or less in a similar fashion. And when we take a look at how most of our what most of our thoughts revolve around, we will see that usually they revolve around ourselves and our personal desires, our personal aspirations and wishes, and anything that we feel can contribute to these, well, then we agree with and we think are valid and true. Whereas everything that seems to us to be contrary or go against our personal wishes, desires, and so forth, we think are invalid and wrong. Yeah, that's most frequent kind of thought processes that we have.
제빈자 지를 밑에 둔돌 삼도에 유바치부체 레티니 가르슈레 같이 좀 띵살르치기 이게 개발 요리 만도시 삼동 다 치고 요리 대화 누기 요리 동인 누기 요마리 둔두 이니 치부리 미 이니 치부리 요리 요마리 르바 레티 따티 만주 가르슈레 지기 남주 삼로때 망쳐오지 만주 신낭시 말한주 대반낭시 삼당면도 무비네주 피기 뛴 삼당규티 가부여래.
Like I said, be it our fellow humans or be it animals, there are great similarities in the way the minds of living beings function. Of course, will be a difference in depth and capacity between the human mind and animal, different forms of animal life. But there are common traits, and those are the aspiration to happiness, which we all share, and the hope to avoid any pain, any suffering. And yet, when we, like I said, when we examine how most of us think and what our thoughts revolve around, it is most often what just simply involves our desires, what we hope for, what we want for ourselves, and without there being any kind of objective examination of whether those our usual thoughts are realistic, in the sense of whether they actually correspond to the way things exist. That is lacking, I would say.
Pena tiriba, nesu undu sevina, michi shushu kabla, chituyata, satuyata, di lo yali tu chitugu marba, satubi marba, di kari situ, nesu ungu, lu kor kendu yore, lu kene tinde chene, nuba nyamru yorba, rang nuba di nyamchimba yinza, ini rangxingi ko jima tupu di chabari. Chab yinza, dati mubi nesu samdang ina, dila halaya yomari, rangxingi, rosa dimendo yomari. Midakwe choji yinza, gebi shugu dili njignduguri, dimendo yomari, di geni manjigu doya yomari. Zambuling lusu kabachene yomari, penandaba yineri, yushi lusu yineri, seri be lusu yineri, kaba yine di minduba yomarba, di rangshirba.
So, just to give an example, when we are young, we have a certain the ability to do a great ability to accomplish many things, and it could be something as basic as ability to eat whatever we want without getting sick. We have a good digestive capacity and so forth most often. But as we age, this kind of capacity declines, and this is simply natural. It's our body. As our body ages, we lose the kind of capacities such as this that we had when we were young. There's nothing extraordinary about this. It's perfectly inevitable and natural. We are composite phenomena. We are therefore impermanent. We change, in fact, from moment to moment, and this process of constant change and evolution ends up at finally leading us to the moment where our life ends, our present life ends. And this is nothing that we can do anything to change. There's no solutions found, for example, among the scientists to change this. There's nothing we can find in various religions like Christianity to change this. It's just a fact, an inevitable fact. And a fact of life, we could say.
재빈자 배나 나를 실차샤비니 먼저 쉬쉬갑라 지투야 내가 이내리 사투야 칼라 이내리 띵산 지투금인도 사투금인도 이제 지투금인도 미 아야 이내 너무나 힘이 세보다 지겨워다 좀 세보 통야를 써봐 그래서 여말에 민두디 아무튼 동의 여말에 가르신디 랑신레스 좀된데 송어를 봐 두제 탐색미다 봐 사제 탐색 동의와 최 탐색 동시 다음에 냥을데 봐 희와스 가난 살이 인자 디스나냐 여러봐 제사 미기 통마토베 갈래 여리 땡땡도 갈래도 제사 디체도 밀파 미시고야 소보다 담이자 망부지기 여러봐 암조기 고투기 여마리 제빈자 나 샤야 망부샤기 여러봐 제스 고마토이니 믹세기 들라 고투기면도 통투기면도 선배 동에 여마리 그런시레 삼버스
to take my case, to take myself as an example, when I was young, of course, there's many things I could do, many different activities I could engage in without any problems. I could just taking the example of eating. I could eat whatever I liked, and it didn't create any problems for me whatsoever. But this, of course, didn't last, and now I'm elderly, and as a result, through the natural process of aging, well, I can't see as well as I could before, and I can't hear as well as I could before. I can't, eat exactly what I did before, and so forth. This process of aging has created these forms of decline but I know that this is inevitable, and therefore it doesn't really make me suffer. I don't fight it, and I know it's the way things are, and it doesn't make me anxious or whatever. Of course, I try to resolve the problems that gives rise to, like get glasses made, getting hearing aids, wearing hearing aids, and so forth. But but that doesn't mean that I refuse this kind of change, and because I know what the Buddha taught regarding this. He said that all composite phenomena, like myself, are impermanent, change from moment to moment. That all contaminated phenomena or impure phenomena are by nature suffering. That all phenomena in general are devoid of inherent existence. They are empty of true existence. And I know the Buddha also taught that the state beyond suffering is in other words, nirvana is by nature peace.
제비 인사 근데 믹스 동의 마요야디 가르쳐도 산제 좀 된데 그 송사르바 무슨 랍제 균 사르 뉴제 탐지 미탁바 사세 탐지 동야와 가난 사르바 딩은 좀 셈리 여르바 유 인자 모두 다른 레샤 코미타부 인자 아무나시 저지 도민도 삼바라보 재능은 주 제빈장은 주 가르슈르 남주 곰자도 동의 곰바사야 돼. 두긴 코에 님이 세안도 동 자선 좀 된데 당부 담부 시나는 최송도 당부 동의 왜 이래도와 이건 좀 모두 나가봐. 이 모두 나가 인자 다디 단다디 용도 무슨한지 류간 강에서 차 용도 온다 개개 동의 dinleri 통민도 퇴기민도 삼바스만도 간자다가 다 통민도 sem 동의다 뒤치는 요만하다 매야디 좀 된데 송반난 신이 랑가디간 삼로디간 첨비인자 동의 요모고 종을 봐 다디 마인베 대수 앞서 매버 솔라 어떤가 다디리 디순다
So, the Buddha taught all this before, and since the point is to use what the Buddha taught, which is what I do, to avoid this kind of change, creating problems for me. In other words, since I was forewarned by the Buddha's teachings that all things that are impermanent, are all composite phenomena like myself and are subject to change, in other words, are impermanent, well, then I can understand and relate this to myself. And understand also that all contaminated phenomena like our body and so forth, they are by nature bring suffering as well. Well, then when I see these truths being enacted, so to speak, in myself, when I see myself aging and I see myself becoming less capable of doing what I did before, then it doesn't make me suffer. I don't resist it. I don't fight it. I don't need to complain about it because I'm forewarned. I knew this was going to happen because I listen to the advice of the Buddha. And when you are forewarned, well then, when what you've been warned about occurs, then it's much easier to accept and to not want to resist it and fight it. So the Buddha, knowing this, how important this was when he first taught the four noble truths, he began with the question of suffering, and this again was so that we could sort of knew what to expect, so to speak. And so when I see this happening, this change that he taught us to expect occurring, then I don't feel bad about it, so to speak. I don't need to feel to complain about it and so forth. Since I've been warned in advance, it's something I can accept gracefully.
가르슈르 산제 좀 된데기 랍자테서 마고함 퇴 마뉴함 퇴베 이네 삼마당 이나 강에딩아 주요레 강에딩아 주요레 되는 건줄 수부치다 겐로도 수수배 빡빡치다 개친지도 다디 마게야 된다 할지 그램단데 막 무부치요레디 테스트 직전에 펜시기를 신기면 같은데 이시스텐데 시라민도 그럼 좋은 바빠 서버 대기를 삼바 시라메 딱 깜부차도 좋은 직 tulur씩 통해서 요리만도 하고 코리 그래서 버자오니 이제 요 말대가 지메 매디 이니 미스다든지 지금도가 카민도디 다가스다 지 상 마코레서로 니스디 콘솔티 마중으로 봐 가르슈브레 산제 숭샤베 랍즈티 마코 인자 콘솔 제사 러장베 때문에 마문든지 지투이 단디 지투 제야 코로나 삼단제 인지제네 로켄고 시부차비니 이니 잘 쳐야 할수 잘 쳐야 이 가리 얼때 이제 지금 민망부도 같다 띵한서 통도가 그래서 뭐비 내수 하모고 쟁기 중으로 봐 뭐비 내수디 가르스나 교다 깬 때는 주부지나 기식 레르는 지금도 그러면도 대야요 말이지 기식 지금도 요르바 이 띵사 체리부터 이 하고 요르바 체리부터 기식 지금 신도가 좀 되게로 망병은 디 송사르바 재상한저 디 가르슈리 가로 랍세티 여인자 디수 원기 겐 조티 가위 동에디 유nyong에 용요리 장고슈는 가위 동에 배세 매베 서럽지 요리 인지 서럽지 나오셔진도.
So those who haven't had the opportunity to hear the Buddha's teachings, to learn about them, or who've heard them but haven't really yet understood them, they still face this kind of problem, which when they see themselves aging, and take for example the problem of the aging skin, when people's skin loses its good color, and when your wrinkles begin to appear and so forth. Well, there's lots of resistance to this evolution, and people spend fortunes on facial creams and other means to try and prevent this process of the aging of their skin. That's just one example. And frankly, I know these things exist and they're very, very widespread. But of course, if you feel the skin is feeling very dry and you put cream on, maybe can help you to feel a little bit less uncomfortable. But as to whether your skin can actually improve, well, that's a whole another story. I frankly have never seen anyone's skin improve with this kind of treatment. So in fact, what it means is that people have false hopes. They have their about preventing their process of aging, and this means that even when people are really quite old, they still go on dyeing their hair, and really, what purpose does that serve? Who are they trying to fool? And this is an indication of a lack of understanding of reality, which is that being impermanent phenomena, in other words, being someone who arises from causes and conditions, by that very fact is you are subject to change at every moment of your existence, and that is something that you cannot alter. It is a fact of life, and it's something that, of course, the Buddha taught, but then also this momentary change, the constant moment change from one instant to the next, is something also that the scientists agreed to and explain nowadays. I understand this from the Buddha's teaching, and therefore the fact of being subject to aging doesn't create any problems for me. It's not the process of aging doesn't make me suffer at all.
Jason. 가르슈리 두제 탐지 미다가 송야 송디 수 고바 인상 만수 개야 매베 저것 개기 요마레 개야 매베 저것 요마레디
In other words,
걔는 된 주도 걔니 초네 주부지는 예버 그게지니 번지 로를 송어라 봐 제티 송사의 인상 개야 매베스도 부지부터 간데 유니티 주다 대야들 개야 매베서 봐다 이 저것이 요마레 자서 저 매베 인상 대수 요용도 동의미세 요마레
like I said, the Buddha taught that all composite phenomena, all composed things, in other words, things that arise from causes and conditions, are impermanent. They change from one moment to the next. And since I have understood this fact of life, I have no kind of hope not to age. I'm not expecting that I will can avoid aging. So because when causes and conditions come together, the things that they produce change are changed from one moment to the next. So the people who imagine that they can avoid changing, who can avoid aging, haven't understood this. They don't. What it means not to age means, of course, not to change, and that is unrealistic.
제빈사 만주 삼로 통다데 무비네즈드 튜네 야부 요아리 슈고야 디리 무비네즈드 마튠비 삼탄두 저와스 갑테투 게야 메벌소 이큐노 요아요 말바 제사 삼부티 무비네즈드 튜버스 탄토 이나 동인 요아요레 벨람산 동인 용기르티 동인 용기 여바티 랑신스 삼바 하고 그러바.
So it would obviously therefore be very good if our way of seeing things, our way of thinking actually coincided with the way things are and the way things exist, because that would certainly lessen our suffering considerably. Doesn't mean that we would no longer suffer, because that also is part of life, but definitely there would be significant reduction in the problems that we are faced with.
든지스제네 먼저 삼로 등급이 내수도 춤바치 동 셴버 제발라 로 조단데 야부 생교도 개침물이 셈다 로다 셈기네다 간데 이미 모 셈기 모 간데 이미 야와 간데 이미 제레 간데 이미 이 젠디 저불링 미 창매 장고야 지리샤 다 든든 장투 말바 셈교츠 말르스모 장투 말바 그 미즈 인지 미 상면 장고야 지르디 가르스지 미즈께도 야 요새 펜 톡슈디 디르바
If in order for to adjust our thinking, the way we think, so it does correspond to the way things exist. Well, it's very important that to come to understand how the mind functions, the different facets of our mind, the different nature of the kinds of thoughts we can have. We speak of mental factors and so on. Each have a specific nature and function and so forth, sometimes, and causes. So this kind of study would be useful and would be ideal, in fact, for it would be ideal that all sentient beings could engage in this kind of study, but unfortunately, animals, for example, don't have that option. They don't have language, and therefore they cannot engage in this kind of learning process. So, but we can, and I really feel that if we could understand how our mind functions, better understand how our mind functions, then that would be actually the most useful tool that we could ever have to make our lives more meaningful.
제비 인자 미지 던던 덴버 계약 락저스 개치슈디 가르스나 마랑주 셈게 남샤들이 마랑주 셈게 로단다 대소 야고 셈세 제비이나 아니 안주 락베나는 예배스럽지 안주 스쳐서럽지 요리디 이 촌에만 힘이 있는 촌에 배 림부르바다.
So indeed, I really feel that the most useful tool for making our lives worthwhile, making our lives meaningful, the best tool of a life in our lives that is in fact one that is in fact available to us, is to understand how our minds function, how our mind functions, and the different aspects of it, its different nature of our different thoughts and emotions and so forth. Without this kind of tool, really finding happiness is much more problematic.
제비 인사한테 가르쳐드리는 생긴 소나 망쳐서 남기 치 생긴 이미 인사 그런 저 규어인데서 사람하고 쉐버봐 나한테 사바 서년인데 예비니 사바 서년 예비니 남배 추기 나는 가르치는 거스도 개치슈티 샘다 샘중 남샤들이 이 아버지 셴비나 먼저 마음바티 간주 락페날 예배스럽지 어리디 아란줄 근치 투리 아란줄랑 아란줄 캡치 투리.
No, amongst those of you who are listening today, many of you have heard this explanation before, and you know what I'm talking about. You're aware of this, but there are newcomers amongst you as well, people who haven't heard the Buddha's teachings before, and for them, I am underlining the greater importance of understanding or studying this topic of mind and mental factors. It's extremely useful means to take control of your life, to take your destiny in hand, and in a way to become your own guide, your own protector.
제비 인상 좀 된다고 송도와 다니 다긴 교인기 신은 수신 건도 줄 다니 렉버 주와나 개베토리 토바 교송을 나랑기 거리 나랑기 꺄버리 이니 랑기 셈디 뒤송나 줄송나 랑기 셈디 오자사 이니베 냥데 토베레 송리.
And it's for this very reason that the Buddha taught that you you can become your own guide. You should be your own guide and be your own protector. And once you have tamed your mind, then you can find peace.
Nangbe shung sungba nangxin shung shenta jingla yo mare ishu shung yo mare ngamung gerek tan desu shung yo sa mare din tsenrik be nale mendu yo mare jasan tingsan tsenrik bu mangbu ji nangbe chul goya de tu de ru.
Like I said, this advice is something that those who have listened to Buddha's teachings before are familiar with, but now I wanted to underline the importance of learning about the mind and the different states of mind, what we call the mental factors, as a means to make your life meaningful. And this is a topic, a very important topic within Buddhism, a topic of study and practice. The way it is presented in Buddhism is really quite unique. It's extensive and profound, and such as it is found in Buddhism is not found elsewhere, be it in, for example, Greek philosophy or in the different fields of science, modern science and so forth. There are, of course, similar fields of study, but I don't think that they go as deeply into it or thoroughly into it as it is explained in Buddhism.
제비 인자 딘리 인자 딘리긴 샘다 심중으로 소배 남샤테죠 야 좀된 되긴 너는 숨은 되긴데 토메 구제를 소배 토메 하고 토메 다 꿈지 중인이 나 소배 초랑 추자로 소배 개반 남기 에 세부지 소나제 안줄로 좀 지대부지 소나제 무슨 샤요르바 샤버디 샤요르디 이니티 샤버디 로 망베 봐도 베버스냐네 슈브리 베메 인산데 수키 샤요 말이죠 베르 산제 때마다는 되니 이긴데 참마 벽에 나를 벽에 나를 교르 삼들마세 베버스냐네 나네 단다 봐도 냠네 마냠바 근데 또바 귤 총등에 단다빠도 망보여래 베베나 제빈선딜라 베버츠 시다베 차지 침부샤요래 락지 침부샤요래 셰스마 차지 침부샤요래 제빈자 드니베 제빈자한테 대술리베 가르슈우리 다두야 셈제 지긴 감딜 셈제 찍게 말이봐. 배 가르슈리 샘지 찍기 여비이니 대수 만년 버전이 냐고야스리.
So, of course, the Buddha taught about mind and mental factors in his sutras, and then later his disciples in the future, later on, notably Arya Sangha and his brother Vasubandhu, also Dharmakirti Dinaga, they expanded on what the Buddha taught in the sutras and clarified it further. And all these teachings were passed on from the Indian masters to the Tibetans, and the Tibetans have been able to uphold and maintain these very precious teachings in a way that is not found elsewhere in the world. Their works were first of all translated into Tibetan language, and then shared through, from the teachers to their disciples, and therefore implemented by various Tibetans, and thanks to which many attained spiritual realizations. And this is like a great treasure that has been guarded by the Tibetans until today, and it's one that should continue to be guarded as long as there is still even just a single living being, a sentient being in the world who's still subject to suffering. For their sake, it's important to maintain and uphold and pass on this teaching.
This is this way. This is so casually. Choso and this. Choso and the casually number choso to spare Europe. But the parasile mango. 가스칼 망부 찬조도 야보시다리 대수파 야보시파 유다고 야보시 베카슈리 다가스 곰 야기유세 조금 양보스 다가스 대비섬 마임바 모니터니 뷰다고 야보시 에 난주티 계심시다리.
And it's for this purpose. It's really very important that centers like this one and other centers, that there are many, for example, in France and elsewhere in Europe, elsewhere as well. It's very important that they fulfill this role. They play an important role in sharing this kind of teaching, and not just contenting themselves with meditation, which consists simply of sitting down and concentrate, putting yourself in a state of concentration.
송게 된릭체도 미유 된리지리 먼저 저기 신다미유 말에 제비인자 데이터 링크란서 망부스페 망부스 또나나 자외 남시지다 독자시라 좀스티 네 장면 또나나 패버다 이신도 패버들 투시 슈잉다 지금.
And we've organized this open house day today, and set up the possibility of selling, buying of certain art handicrafts and so forth. It's solely for this purpose. It's with this ultimate purpose in mind, and for no other purpose. So I appreciate your coming today, despite the bad weather and so forth, and I thank you very much for your presence. I would like to also thank the various teams that have worked to make this open house day come about, and you worked very hard and in very difficult circumstances with bad weather, great wind, rain, and so forth. And not only have you sort of made a great physical effort, but this also involved a lot of anxiety because of the bad weather, and so I really, really appreciate your efforts, and I would like to thank you very much for them.
저지 투르베
제토레
알레
레레
쟤네 야부 미트로 매브르 섬을
마도 디 베기 다 이게 주선데 투어 용식을
알레 진리가 봐
아네
왜 매브르 섬 단도 계속 추주직도 가면 주직셔셔 계속 추주직도 가면 주직 다 그리니 그런저 이게 수진 저지 투기여다 저지 투기여나 네 저징이지 지슌들이
So I didn't realize that there was a possibility of people in the audience that in the temple asking questions if they have any, and so I would maybe spoke a little bit long. It's been about an hour and 11 minutes so far that since I've been talking, but now I've been informed that it is possible for those people in the audience in the temple Yiga Chizin to ask questions. So if you wish to ask questions, please feel free to do so now. That's of course for the French people. Are there any questions? Allez. Tio Mendusa. Tio Mendusa. If there's no questions, it's not a problem. Not so whatsoever.
미유디 캔송한간주 내지 찍어야 되는 송자야지
티오시 예술이 티오시도
오케이
나를
et que j'ai noté, c'était en lien avec des éléments perturbateurs. Que sont les éléments perturbateurs?
가스도 로선 좀 고수면
et sabche nyalengi pumpu sabche soyolwa sabche tanche dunelwa sabche tene nyomon tondelwa yopa c'est sans nyomon c'est na karire sa sabche c'est na karire sa
저야 오시라래 저야 오시라 심주 장고야 들봐 뉴무스나 배는 코라 징이디 패질코 치다 주유스 말에 콩루 라야진도 와 한수 콩루 라야지 콩루 스인디 뉴무리 이니 착바세스도가 규자랄 착바 밀레 착바 다든지 민레 착바세스도가 이 뉴무리 이니 한수 켜네 사 무부직던다 지간 삼당도 가까이 삼나 마트야 나 토미 삼버지 때도가 어디에 뉴모리 어떻든지 레스.
So the question had to do the question had to do with contaminated phenomena, and contaminated phenomena means that are influenced by what we call the kleshas, the disturbing mental states. So this person is asking what these kleshas are. And so I believe this person asking the question is not someone who's familiar with the Buddha's teaching, but to give some simple answers or examples rather. The kleshas, for example, are anger, not being able to put up with other people's behavior or whatever, or situation, attachment to things like people, to objects, your belongings, or to your reputation and so forth. Or another example would be ignorance, which is simply a state of not knowing. When you're trying to think about something and understand it, your just mind is in a blank of in a state of not knowing. These are just a few examples of major kleshas or disturbing mental states.
Y aurait-il d'autres questions?
Any other questions?
Yeah. That's an interesting. Then someone just delay. Then you can answer that. You should get you should do that. Get you rank sem the hako race. Rank sem the rank hako watch. The yuna. Then samlo kanjumanju dinre. Samlo tunda maybe samlo. Rawa tongba mangbu. Yagi yorba. Penang anzo mashiro jense the rawa tongba re. Ranzo magero jense rawa tongba re. Magaya yo mari. Mashia yo mari. 자선 대소 하고는 되는 리브르바 된 디지기베 가르 마게일다 최대 야부제 되니베 세주 야분잼 되니 참점 제할수부터 야부제 디만도 지하시 신다 요 말이 되니 마시야 답시네 내가 제요 말이 콜 인도 수이네 요 말이 이내 배나 알아서 시도 수수 수부터 전주를 수수 무심을 접붙은 전주를 수수 라만 소바 네 미시다 파수 저와 신부 유부 창문 전주를 전주도 심기부터 요 말하다니 뭐 기부터 요리디 유니 더 디소야 요 말이 삼바 그래 랑신 레삼부터 신주 동이 가신지 맞출 심브레 이 매버 됐어 동이 빡도 매버 동이 강 동이 명주케기 요래 두스레
So I just want to underline what you should take away today. The most important message I wanted to share with you is that it's how crucial it is to know your own mind. If you can manage to understand your mind better, your way of thinking and so forth, you can avoid a lot of pointless thoughts occurring to you and empty hopes, like hoping that you won't die, hoping that you will not get old, that you will not age. And it is, of course, important still to look after your health, like I explained as well, and to eat well, eat healthily in a healthy manner, and also to take exercise and so forth. But despite this, death is not something that you can avoid. It's not a happy thought. We don't want to die, but it is inevitable. And when we die, of course, it is a process of separation, first of all, between our mind and our body. And we also lose our we lose our friends and our family members and our belongings and so forth. It's not something we look forward to, but at the same time, it is inevitable, it's natural and perfectly normal. And it's important to try and be aware of that, because if you're not, then when the moment comes to die, then you will most likely find it extremely painful. So you're better off thinking about it in advance and preparing yourself for this inevitable moment of your existence.
Takarshuri. Nangbi chu 다 지난주 난 망부지 난줄도 나 요래 망부지 요 말에 딘디르 봐 수순되어 봐 수순되어래 이니 남배 최디 두갑 닐라 안테 두릅 이슈삭시 봐 이슈삭시 반딜라 미미세 강에서 펜도 시슈 찍그리샤 시슈 레슈메 펜도 시슈 찍그리슈이 디시샤 가르스도 수수단 도요르바 셈을 구교단 도요 셈을 구교단 되니 동이 요르단 대범마다 디치 토요르바 셈을 구교단 마투도 다가서 말하면 잡세 대버리만 도시다 가요아요.
So, many of you are interested in Buddhism. Many of you, some of you are not. That's fine. It's everyone's free choice. But I do believe that at the present time, in other words, in the century we're living in, the 21st century, Buddhism is a very useful method. I'm not saying that it's the best of all methods. I'm not saying it's the only method, but it is. I do believe it is a very useful one to make your life happier and more meaningful. Why is that? Is because, as I explained, in Buddhism we find many ways of adjusting our thinking and so that it corresponds better to the way things actually exist, the way things are. And as I explained, well, that is a way to find greater happiness in life, to find greater peace, and also to give more meaning to your life.
대니신다 슈야민도 자산다 들이 말한소 생기 상물라 가르쇼리 되는 간투도 민남 자기 지란소 trouble 용한다 지란소 되베 되는 줘봐 야부 용 민남 자기 되는 말한소 요분자양 좋지.
So I have nothing else to add other than that I will pray for all of you that your lives should become happier, and that your aspirations, your worthwhile aspirations and goals may be easily fulfilled. And I hope to see you soon again.
Mhm.